So Wildcat Sports is going to be on TV.
Yep. My 54, New Orleans, in between Ultimate Ninja Warrior and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's an amazing.
Hey guys.
Hey Wally.
I've got good news and I've got bad news.
Good news first.
Good news, I found Nemo.
Hey.
Yeah, he was just back there on the shelf for $5.99.
Hey. All right.
The bad news though, I feel hard saying this, but it's important that you know this. I've been stealing. Over the course of several weeks, I've taken things from your store without paying for them.
That is.
This might seem like a turn in character, but I want to be good now. I don't want to take things from you. I don't want you to be deprived of sales that you could have otherwise sold to small children in here in a Pokestop.
Who steals an Olaf and a My Little Pony?
Yeah,
what are you doing with
Do
these?
you want to build a snowman? I did want to, for free,
It's
build a
amazing
snowman.
thing. It's like $100.
It's 100.
I know, that's why I feel really bad about
Hey,
it.
what are you doing?
Bill!
Hey, Alex, your security.
What?
What are we paying you for? John, we trust you to keep Wally in check, and now you're helping him steal.
I mean, people change.
People change.
People change.
Not that much. You're saying you're a bad guy now?
I mean, we are in a comic book store. Look, how many people have gone from being a supervillain to a hero, or being a hero to a supervillain? I mean, look at Green Lantern. Pinnacle of willpower and superiority and just this awesome protector of the universe. And then he became Parallax.
I thought you were talking about Guy Gardner.
Oh no, he's always been a douchebag.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
But he's my favorite.
But, I mean,
My favorite.
this was one of the premier, he was one of the golden characters, even back from the golden age. And then he went back and he killed a ton of people.
He's frenzied. I mean,
He killed a
didn't
bunch
get
of-
all those rings by just asking, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, he killed the whole core. That is true. That is
And then he changed back.
So you're saying there's a writer in the sky that's changing your fate?
But what it is, though, is the way that But what it was, though, is they found a way, storytelling-wise, to bring him back from the brink.
Jeff
so
Johns.
it wasn't just, oh, now he's good again. Jeff Johns in Rebirth took Hal Jordan from that terrible, evil place and put him into a place where he could be the pinnacle of,
Are you my Parallax?
I am everyone's Parallax.
Fair.
But Hal Jordan was Spectre before he came back in Rebirth, so...
Well, exactly, and that's the journey.
That was-
He went on a journey. What I appreciate so much, and that's why that's the first one that we think about
Yeah.
in this, is that he didn't just go there. He went there believably. He went mad believably, and then it didn't just take him a day to turn around. He had to go on a long journey that made him the Spectre, and then it made him a husk
And
himself.
Wally's been corrupting me for months.
So Hal Jordan is the poster boy for heroes turning bad, but I think one of the earliest cases of what you thought was a hero turning bad is Terra in the new Teen Titans. Turns out she was bad the whole time, but she won your heart over as the reader. And so when she turned, you readers couldn't believe it. It came out, they were like, well, this is some obvious ruse. Oh, no. She's a hard-smoking, drinking teenager who's dating Deathstroke the Terminator.
That's when I fell in love with her, though.
There were some really suspect panels, though, in that
Yeah,
issue.
totally,
She
right?
was a very
Yeah.
young person.
But she was such a good-hearted character that people loved her. And so when she turned evil, which wasn't really a turn, that's what it felt like, you know? And it echoes to today, because they still keep bringing her back as a good character, but she was never a good character. She was always a bad guy. It's great.
One of the great hero turns, this actually didn't even happen in the comics per se, but it reverberated, and it just proves that the turn itself was what's exciting, not necessarily the build-up, and that was from X-Men the Animated Series, Morph. They killed him in the very first episode, and he was a character, he didn't really exist.
Yeah.
I mean, he was kind of vaguely changeling, but not really. And you felt deep impact because the story was so good. And you're like, oh my god, this X-Man died in this first episode. Then I think it's somewhere in the second season, there's this big arc about like, he might still be alive. Like, let's go find him. Wolverine was destined to find him. And he was
The Wolverine Sinister arc.
exactly,
Yeah.
and Sinister was using Morph as a pawn, and he was straight up evil. And that was such, as a child watching that, like that was I was rooting Morph. We need Morph again. I don't know Morph, but I wanted Morph because all our characters love Morph. And then his betrayal was so impactful that it was a phenomenal turn.
And that leads us from the X-Men right into Jean Grey, the ultimate good girl gone bad storyline, right?
Yeah, I always think it's more impactful when it's a character that's a good character turning a good guy turning into a bad guy. Because I mean, you automatically usually love that character from the beginning, and then they have that moment that you also as a reader feel betrayed by them. Whereas for villains, it's a little bit easier to ease them into being good guys.
Right. I mean, and look at what recently happened. Even though it was explained within an issue, when Captain America said "Hail Hydra," it blew up the internet. It really blew up the internet for like 3 days, and then people forgot that they don't read comics.
Because the internet's full of dumb people.
No.
There was I lost respect for every single person that was upset about Captain Hydra. It was such an obvious something's gonna go wrong. You had Cosmic Cube setups. You had Red Skull in the background. The panels were shaded red. I mean, every quote comic book fan that was upset about that, you're done.
But there's the other side of the story. There's the redemption story where somebody starts off as a villain, and as we all know, the most impactful villains are the ones who aren't doing it just to be mustache twirling and evil. They're doing it because they think they're doing something right. And one of the biggest examples of that is Magneto. Because he was never out to be a terrorist. He was there to protect his people. His methods, highly questionable. But he was always there as, I am the protector of the mutant race.
The only time Magneto had anything close to an actual turn, though, because you're right, he was so riding that gray area train.
Very much.
Was the Zorn stuff, where he was masking himself as Zorn, a hero, turns out to be Magneto.
And then he just offs Jean.
While I will say, I distinctly remember reading that final page of that issue. I did not see that coming. I thought that was one of the better reveals of modern comics. That, alongside like Thunderbolts, things like that. I will actually go a little further back. When Xavier was going to go off into space with the Shi'ar, that's when Magneto first really made his full turn to being a good guy. And he promised to take over the New Mutants and work at the school. That whole run of X-Men and New Mutants was really great and a real in-depth look at his character, even though the outfit he wore was horrible.
With the big spawn in.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
That was a turn, especially in the moment. It felt very much like a turn because the way comics were written a little more black and white back then.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's definitely a gray area that he's always sort of been another side of the coin that Xavier was. So naturally, when he goes away, and you see this in certain Apocalypse ages, where we've been thinking about it the whole time. You knew it was going to happen. Let's talk about Age of Apocalypse. And Age of Apocalypse, I'm talking about it from a perspective of alternate universes. Time out. You can watch the episode about this right here. Time in. What I'm talking about is how alternate universes can give you opportunities to take good characters and play them really bad, and bad characters and play them really good. Age of Apocalypse gave us a couple of really big examples. I remember distinctly the Summers brothers, Scott and Alex, being in this alternate universe where Sinister had them forever and made them really terrible.
And I think the most impactful change was Scott's long hair.
And one eye.
And one eye.
He was truly Cyclops.
Truly a Cyclops. Yeah, and that's when they really got into Sabretooth being a good guy, which quickly bled over into the regular books and is still going on today.
Absolutely, and I think that's what is really exciting about alternate universes is you can try something, and if it works and people like it, you can take it back to regular continuity, like Sabretooth, like Dark Beast was another one where you can take that character and give him the mad scientist bent, and they actually brought him into it. And I would say, up to this point in time, Sabretooth and Emma Frost in that sort of Generation X mold really provided a cool way to showcase traditional villainous characters in a positive, good guy light for really the first time for both of them.
I've never enjoyed Sabretooth as a good guy, though, at all. I don't think there's enough in his past to make me think that he actually would be good. And I know recently they're doing it with a mystical mind change thing, but all the times like Xavier tried to bring him in the match and try to rehab him, I always thought that was so forced.
So that brings up a really interesting question. Do you believe in feel it has stronger impact if you have a character with a long established history who finally has the moment of redemption and changes, or is it something like when you go to Aquaman where his first encounter with Mera was so she could kill him? I think according to one of the 75 DC continuities.
Not true.
But she quickly changes her mind about how to handle him, and they end up falling in love and are. I don't know if they're married at this point. Who cares? It's a mess of continuity. But which has more impact?
Well, I like my bad guys bad, to be honest with you. And there are a few rare cases, maybe like Magneto and like Mira, where they kind of have that blurred line or whatever it may be. But I think it's like the whole anti-hero thing is just a very kind of 90s move, which just makes me think of like Venom, Lethal Avenger,
Protector.
Lethal Protector, Venom.
He's now a space guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then even Harley Quinn is kind of like teetering on that line now. But I like the Suicide Squad is a great example because those guys are just genuinely still bad guys being forced to do something that I guess is for the greater good. But at the end of the day, they're still bad.
And so much of that in the comics has to do with the history of not being able to publish a bad book, a book about a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You had to turn that bad guy into somewhat of a good guy or surround him by even worse guys. If you guys remember the DC book, The Secret Society of Supervillains, which is a fantastic read, totally underrated.
Joe also reads a bunch of shitty comics.
It's a great book, but the only way to tell that story then was to have the main character be pretending to be a bad guy. So he was technically good, but they were able to get into the world of this secret society. And Marvel did it with the supervillain team up, where they use Namor and Doom, and Namor's always tread that line between good and bad, and so you make Doom just be the worst dude, but still you're telling bad guy stories.
But the greatest pretenders were always the Thunderbolts because they had everybody fooled. They also came in at a really craptacular time in comics with design and stuff like that. But people embraced their characters and they acted good. You found out Zemo was in charge. Spoiler after how many dozens of years.
I love Thunderbolts so much.
But some of the guys on that team legitimately became heroes. Like
Mach 5.
Mach 5. Screaming Neebie becomes Songbird, and now she's like a legit agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the comics.
She's great. One of the best issues was when they revealed in the future that she was going to be an Avenger. That made me so happy because she was great. Mach 5 was great. Atlas was awesome. The Thunderbolts as a whole is the epitome of all the stuff we're talking about.
Except for the current version, which has Bucky leading it, which is just kind of weird.
Well,
yeah.
What I love so much about the Thunderbolts and where that group, in all the different permutations, because they've gone from straight up villains pretending to be good guys for bad reasons to straight up bad guys trying to be good for good reasons and everything in between. What I love so much about that, though, is this thought process that villains have their own moral code, and at a certain point in time, it's too much for them too, and they turn good. I think the cleanest I've seen this is in another cartoon, not to be the cartoon guy in this episode.
You are the cartoon guy.
But it was X-Men Evolution, and for the first 2 seasons, everyone watched that. It's on YouTube. 2 seasons of that show, the Brotherhood, were fellow students and the enemies of the X-Men. By the time they got to the end of that show, where they're dealing with apocalypse and all these world-ending things, these are kids, and their evil ends at being the villains of the X-Men, and they are now fighting alongside the X-Men for the greater good. That doesn't change. Their characters haven't changed. Their motivations haven't changed. It's just the spectrum of evil is a long way away, and here to here might seem real evil if that's all you're looking at, but when you get over here, that's all of a sudden kind of good, and those are the best villain good guy stories to me.
your point is well taken. And that might as well be describing the Flash's rogues guy. What are they but a bunch of gentlemen criminals who they will rob and they will plunder from their own city, but if anyone else comes in and messes with their city, no. If Revo, when the crime syndicate showed up, what did the rogues do? They got together and they fought against the crime syndicate. And they've been doing that for years, and I love that about them. They do it a little bit on the show too. Captain Cold and Heatwave were heroes on Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite character like that too is Black Adam. He's very misunderstood. I feel like at the end of the day, he was just doing what was right for his country and his people. Mm-hmm. He was always that kind of character, and he just kind of looked at, as a villain because...
Right, but that wasn't really a turn for him. He was that necessary, I'm doing what some people consider evil things because it's better for my people. One of the biggest turns in this is, me guilty of growing up in the 90s, was the Green Ranger, because the Green Ranger was evil. He may have been under control, but he was evil, and then he has this big redemption story, and he loses the green power, and everybody thinks he's gone, and then he comes back, and he's the White Ranger, and it's like the purest form of the shining knight coming in to save the day.
Sounds like what they did in Green Lantern.
But is it really the most surprising turn?
No! It is not, because the best surprises are the ones that happen right in front of us, and that has to be Iron Lad from Young Avengers, because you know straight from the beginning that he is Kang the Conqueror, and at the end of Children's Crusade, when they're going up, they defeated Doom as God, and he has to go back, and there's a portal that Wiccan creates, and he says, no, wait, this is the moment. This is the moment. If you go through that portal, you become Kang the Conqueror, and he looks at them dead in the eye, and he says, I will be better.
Try to be better at your job. They're stealing from the place. Chase them! It's what we pay you for.
Thank you for watching another Comic Shop Show. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and check out more episodes.
And check me out on my podcast, Joe on Joe, the greatest podcast about G.I. Joe I host.
And if you're in the New Orleans area or on YouTube, watch Wildcat Sports.
And if you want to be like Master Thief and awesome turned good guy, bad guy Wally, buy our mug.
Really, you should steal it.
Buy our mug.
You can't steal it from
Buy
yourself.
our mug. Buy our mug.
Okay, can I plug?